What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be having a deep look at the Snapshot Grenade Tactical in Modern Warfare to see if it's as good as many people are claiming it to be. There's quite a few people out there that are claiming this is absolutely the best camper counter that you can possibly have, especially for Warzone. So today, I'm going to see if that's actually true. But before we get into this, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my Twitch channel. I don't do this often enough, and there's no sponsor or anything for today's video, so if you guys haven't checked me out on Twitch yet, I live stream about 3 days a week or so, and it's just a really chill time. We just hang out, play Warzone. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have over there on my Twitch channel. I will leave a link to that down in the description below. And without further ado, let's just hop into exactly how the Snapshot Grenade works. And let's start it off with the basics. The first property of the Snapshot Grenade that most of you guys know, this is the main purpose of it, is it will highlight enemy players through walls as long as they're within the detection radius when that Snapshot Grenade goes off. And it looks a little bit like this. Now, it's worth noting that this doesn't need to have a line of sight on the enemy player, so it can work through walls as well as through floors. So if you throw one on the first floor and there's an enemy on the second floor, for instance, it will still tag them through the floor, as long as they're within that radius. Now, this radius, according to my testing, is 12.5 meters, which isn't a massive radius by any means, but if it's a small building in regular multiplayer, for instance, that should cover pretty much the whole building. And in Warzone, this will cover most of these smaller houses, but not the larger ones. Now, it is worth noting that this also appears to be a spherical radius, and therefore, like I said, it will cover people in multiple floors as long as they're within 12.5 meters of that Snapshot Grenade. Now, this highlight only lasts for a very short period of time. It's about 1.2 or 1.25 seconds, which is a very short period of time. It just gives you a brief glance at an enemy player's location, and it doesn't really stick to them for a long period of time. And that right there is kind of the basics, and I'm sure most of you guys knew that. Maybe you didn't know the exact numbers as far as the radius and the timing. However, there is another key element to the Snapshot Grenade that a lot of people haven't noticed and didn't realize exists, and this has to do with your minimap interaction. It turns out with the minimap, you also get a ping within that 12.5 meter radius, and any enemy that's within that 12.5 meters will also show up as a dot on your minimap, unless they're using the counter to this, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, the really interesting thing about this minimap effect is, unlike the highlighting effect, which works in a sphere, the minimap effect works in a column, and therefore it doesn't matter how much above or below that enemy player is to the Snapshot Grenade. As long as they are horizontally within 12.5 meters of that, they will show up on your minimap. And just to prove this in Warzone, what I did is I landed at the air traffic control tower, and there were enemies up at the very top of this tower, which is way more than 12.5 meters away from me at the base of the tower. And when I throw the Snapshot Grenade down here, it causes them to show up on my minimap. Now, I can't see them through the floor or anything because it doesn't highlight them, but it will show them on the minimap, and that's something that's often overlooked when it comes to Snapshot Grenades. Additionally, I should point out this minimap effect does counter Ghost. If the enemy player has Ghost on, they still show up as a dot on your minimap, which is quite surprising because normally Ghost makes sure that you never show up on the radar unless you're firing an unsuppressed weapon. But not in this case, it will show a Ghost user there. The only time it won't show the enemy player is if they're using Battle Hardened. So let's get into that. If they are using Battle Hardened in their tier 3 perk, they will not be highlighted by a Snapshot Grenade, and they will not show up on the minimap with a Snapshot Grenade, even if they're not running Ghost. Having said this though, if you throw a Snapshot Grenade and it's within 12.5 meters of somebody that has Battle Hardened, you still get a hit marker and an indicator that the enemy has Battle Hardened equipped. So while it won't show you the exact location of a Battle Hardened user, it will let you know that that Snapshot Grenade hit within 12.5 meters of somebody that is using Battle Hardened. So it still gives you a bit of information on Battle Hardened users, just not the exact location. Now, just to clarify with this Battle Hardened hit marker, you will only get this hit marker in a situation where they would have otherwise been highlighted through walls, so it works in the sphere here, not the column. So in the case of somebody being on the top of the air traffic control tower, you won't get a hit marker at all, and they won't show up on your minimap at all if they're using Battle Hardened. Now, so far, the Snapshot Grenade is looking quite attractive for Warzone, especially for rooting out campers, because if you suspect there's a camper in a building, especially a smaller building, throw a Snapshot Grenade there, and you are guaranteed to find out if there's an enemy in that building, even if they're using the counter to that Snapshot Grenade. Having said this, though, when we're talking about squads in Warzone, this is where the Snapshot Grenade starts to fall apart a little bit, and this is something that many people don't know. Unfortunately, the highlighting effect of the Snapshot Grenade only works for you in Warzone. It doesn't work for your teammates. And just to prove that, you can see in this situation here, I recorded both Enya's perspective as well as my own perspective. She threw a snapshot grenade, and I'm looking right at where the guy is. He's clearly not highlighted for me, and yet he is very clearly highlighted for Enya. The same thing applies to that minimap effect. Unfortunately, this only works for you. It's like a little personal radar. It doesn't work for your teammates at all. And this can create a lot of issues within teams, especially for people that are unaware of this mechanic and the fact that it doesn't work for their teammates, because they might assume that their teammates could also see those enemies through the wall, or at least on the minimap when they can't. Or for the other people on the team, they might think, oh, I saw my teammate throw a snapshot grenade there. I didn't see anybody highlighted through walls and nobody popped up on the minimap, so that means I'm safe to push when they might not be. So that pretty much covers it for the mechanics of how the snapshot grenade works and how it interacts with enemy players. Now I wanted to share my opinion on this a little bit. Is the snapshot grenade really underrated for Warzone? Should people be using that more often than something like the heartbeat sensor, for instance, which is what it seems like the majority of players will be using in their equipment slot? Personally, I would say that, well, the snapshot grenade is a bit underrated and I don't see it used too often, and it can be a solid choice. It's got a lot of downsides as well, especially compared to something like the heartbeat sensor. The first downside is the heartbeat sensor has infinite uses. You can pull that out whenever you want, as many times as you want, and it never depletes, it never runs out, it never disappears for you. Whereas a snapshot grenade is a one-time throw until you find another snapshot grenade, or until you have a munitions box, or you have to run restock in order to use these effectively throughout a match. And using restock is a fairly big trade-off because it's competing with the two most valuable perks in Warzone, and these are Ghost as well as Overkill. So that's a huge strike against the snapshot grenade, and the second big strike is the fact that it doesn't highlight enemy players through walls for your teammates. It only highlights them for yourself, which is yet another red flag, at least for squad-based modes. In solos, I would say snapshot grenades are excellent as long as you're willing to give up Ghost and Overkill for the restock perk, because as long as you get a snapshot grenade on a smaller building, you can approach that building with absolute confidence, knowing whether or not there's an enemy player in that building, even if they're using the counter, which is battle hardened, because you still get that hit marker. Whereas with something like a heartbeat sensor, for instance, especially as you start getting later into the game, you never really know if there's an enemy in there that's using Ghost, which fully counters the heartbeat sensor. Additionally, another upside with the snapshot grenade is the fact that its counter is hardly used in Warzone. There aren't too many people running around with battle hardened, at least in my experience. And therefore, against most players, you will actually see them highlighted through walls anytime you get a hit with that snapshot grenade. I would say snapshot grenades absolutely have a great use in Warzone, and I can understand why people really like using them. However, at the same time, am I going to be changing up my class setups and starting to add snapshot grenades to them? Unfortunately not. At this point, the heartbeat sensor is just far too valuable, and even if I wasn't running a heartbeat sensor, I would probably be running something that's a little more aggressive, like a stun or a flash. But those are just the stats of the snapshot grenade, as well as my opinions on it. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about the snapshot grenades in Modern Warfare, and more specifically in Warzone? Do you think snapshot grenades are really underrated and amazing, and do you use them very often, or do you think they could use a little bit of a buff? What do you think about the fact that the snapshot grenade doesn't work for your teammates and it only works for the person that actually threw the snapshot grenade? Do you think that's how it should be working, or do you think it is something that the entire team should be able to see? Just let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.